Next is the Transportation Committee. I will call that to order. The only thing on the agenda is the discussion of the 4K transportation. The young gentleman here gives a presentation from Nelson.
I do. Rob Nelson, Nelson Transport. Hopefully this will come off.
Jeremy.
There's something on my screen that's not on that.
Well, that's not good.
Most of this I think I can do without it if need be. I can maybe figure it out. Again, I'm Rob Nelson with Nelson Transport, and Lori Mosier, our manager here, and I've been working with Chris and Kathy on the proposed 4K. And right now we have, I think, 68 students as of 2 weeks ago. I didn't check to see if we had any updates. Currently, there were 27 students that had, I believe, Evergreen as their first choice, or at least reside within the Evergreen attendance area. 14 in the Trailside attendance area, and 28 with Woodfield. So right now, what we're putting together is proposing that for budget purposes to figure out that at Evergreen and Woodfield we'd have an AM and a PM session, and as a worst case scenario we'd have that AM students would ride the bus on the regular bus routes and then go home on a midday route, and then a different bus would pick up the students for the PM session and bring them in. We talked about if, depending on which kids actually use the bus, and if they're going home or if they're going to a sitter or a daycare, would adjust what those times look like. And if there was a way to use one bus to take kids home and pick up the afternoon session to reduce the cost, we would definitely do that. The hard part is going to be knowing exactly which kids ride and where did they live, and geographically, what does that look like. A couple of things we did talk about is what do we do at the midday time? We're taking students home and there's not a parent there. We would try to contact the parents via phone at that point. If we got a hold of someone, depending on where that bus is, we might take them right home, or it might be toward the end of the route. Just, you know, if we're 5 miles away, we may not come back until we drop those kids off in that area and then work our way back. If we couldn't find a parent, and it does happen occasionally now with the Title I 4K, we'd call school and then bring them back to school. Hopefully between us and school we can find the you know, what happened with the parents that particular day. So that's how we would handle those. Again, if they're a PM session, then they would ride the regular route buses home. Right now, we looked at the numbers of students that be going to middle school, kind of what our numbers of current 5K is this year, and based on the 4K numbers this year. We do feel at this point we're safe of not having to add any buses to any of the regular AM and PM routes that we have the capacity to do that. It helps that this year we added the fourth bus back to Woodfield, and that's, you know, again, Woodfield has the most at 28 currently. But there are a few things that we would need to consider. With the current walk zones, Would those 4K students be bused at the AM PM times? Would they be walking to school like their older siblings do, if they have older siblings or not? And if they were bused, would we be traveling through those walk areas for 4K only? Does that open the door for the older students that live there? That's something we would need a little direction on, of how we would actually set up those routes, and that, depending on that answer, that would change these numbers that we have currently. The same thing is if we're in, say, a subdivision, we would ask that those students walk to the existing bus stop on those routes. Is how we first started looking at those. If that's something different, we need to know that as well, because that would affect the timing of the existing routes. At the midday time, we're going to get door to door if we can. I know there are a few streets, and I wrote down, that are just south of Whitfield School where they dead end. So if they live on those streets, we can't get a bus down and turn around and come back. So there could be a few instances where we get close at the midday time, but not in every case can we get to someone's driveway at those times, because we do like to, especially at those midday times, whether we're dropping them off or picking students up, we like to see parents. And if there's not a parent there, we're going to make every effort to find them, and if not, we'll bring them back to the schools. I can figure out why this, we did look at breaking up Trailside with being right now enough students for one session, that would just be a take home. We did look at Woodfield, kind of breaking with using the river kind of as our landmark of students on the west side. I'm sorry. Would be one session, and those that live on, and I think that was the morning session, if I remember right. I'd have to see if I can pull that up. Any technical person here that might know what?
No.
Might be able to help. Or is it just a function? Yes. Thank you. So this is an example of Evergreen, and we do have one student that if they ride, if I can walk away from here, we go all the way up Marsh Road, come back around down into the peninsula area. That would add a lot of time to that route, and obviously miles, but we're going to go where the kids go. But that's one example of something that could alter the amount of time it takes. If that student did not ride the bus, it's potential, especially in that small of an area, that we could use one bus to take kids home and pick kids up. So that's one example of it depends on who rides and where they're going to. We do see with a lot of the other schools that we work with that a lesser number of 4K students actually ride the bus. Parents tend to bring them and take them, especially if it's their first child that's coming into school. So that's the Evergreen attendance area. And here's Woodfield with using kind of W as the dividing line. And the green we have is tentatively what we have put as the morning session. And then lastly, I'll just go Trailside. Trailside also has one student that lives oops, sorry, I don't have it closed. We do have a student that lives north up towards Wind Lake. Again, that could add some time to that route. So that's kind of in an area, if you look at the map, that's kind of blocked out. We've got to go in actually through the other district to come back down. So
That one that goes past the church up there, that road?
you know, I
I think so. And then it goes back around there.
there, Chris and Kathy, is there anything that I missed that we're talking about?
No, so I think the two major points is, do you want to stick with the walk zone at the beginning of the day and the end of the day? Do you want 4K students to be picked up in walk zones, or do you want 4K students to abide by the current rules of the walk zones? So that would be the first piece. And then the second piece is, are you okay with the bus company going as close to door as they can for the safety of the students at the midday when there's not so many students and parents out? They would abide by the same rules that we have now, that if there's nobody outside or whatever, in visual line to see the child, that they would bring the child back to school like they do now.
One other question before we go there, right now today's child's enrollment is very low, but if they would increase in enrollment, what is our plan for that?
As far as 4K students?
Well, what we had talked about before is we have March 25th for another 4K registration, and after that time, you wanted to come back and talk about what we're going to do with Rainbow. Rainbow now has 8, and today's child has 1. So the decision on even Rainbow was going to come back after that March 25th to see if we have any more students at any of our sites. So that could alter the amount of time spent midday, because some of those students would die. So it would just, it's still an efficiency thing. It would take less time if more students don't ride. So route in all the students, because that would give us the most that it would cost us if students did go to community services, just to get an idea of the budgeting.
I think originally, didn't we shorten up the walk zones too? I know, I believe Dan was the one that made the motion at the time.
Yeah, sure. It's already a, yes. So the issue is we were down to, having gone at that time, one of every single child in front of the door. As you can see, you can't go from the doors, and it's in the street, which I agree 100%.
You can't turn a bus back.
Close enough is what you're gonna get. And I agree 100% that this parent's not out there with a 4-year-old child. You shouldn't be dropping the child off. I do agree with Dawn, as close as you can get, the number of students you can pick up what you want to see. My question would be is, the students, that one student, way up off the Michigan, which is so far out of the busing area, can we actually pay the parent to take the student, as opposed to increasing the bus cost and the delay time for the other students exponentially? That to me would be a better solution than the one child, we have like units in there.
We can offer a parent contract, but if they decline it,
Yeah.
we're still obligated to transport.
So I'd be saying that we'd be better off doing that than having all the other students sit on a bus while we go with one student, or us has to take an extra half hour driving back and forth driving with one student. Doesn't seem burden, but I think we shortened it to what was the radius of, what would we say?
It was 0.3, I thought. was-
Right.
You said it was less than a half mile.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it was near to like, Bucks River Hills subdivision, which would have been walking distance.
Right.
That does take into account that Fairview would not be that distance, it's over that distance, therefore everybody in Fairview is bused. Correct?
That'd be correct. The piece that the board needs to keep in mind, like Rob said a few minutes ago, is what are you going to do about siblings then? Because basically, where we left it a few months ago is that the 4K kids would be bused. If you have a 5th grade sibling or 3rd grade sibling,
No,
they would still have to walk. All right.
I would agree with that.
What's your opinion, Tom?
Well, one thing I was going to ask Rob is, your experience, what are other districts doing as far as the door-to-door and things like that? How are they handling that?
Most of them adhere to their walk zone, so if they're a walker as a 3rd grader, they would be a walker as a 4K. Most of them at the midday try to get as close as they can, because there's not other students out there waiting with them. As opposed to the morning, if they're in a morning session, there could be 5 to 10 other kids waiting at the bus stop. You'll feel a little more comfortable as a parent. You're probably still going to go with them to the bus stop. I'm assuming most parents will. But if it's one student alone, You don't want to be dropping them, if you can't. If you can drop them at their house, that's much more preferable at that midday time.
And in your experience, has that gone well? Following the last thing any of us want to do is put, obviously, a kid
Exactly.
in a bad situation, or dangerous situation, so we want to make sure we're doing this correctly. But also, you have the experience of doing it with other districts that have been doing it a long time, so if they have a way it works, it could probably work for us too, without reinventing the wheel.
Any other questions?
The only thing, and I agree with shortening up the walk zones, only because like up here, they walk across right by Rivermore. Well, there's nobody walking across there, but 2 blocks up, they're shooting across in traffic and almost getting taken out a few times already this year.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, and if a 4-year-old sees Big Brother shooting across, he's not as fast, but he'll try.
Well, and I think a big question we still have, and I don't know how much data we got from the registration process, but do we have any real indication of how many parents are, working and want their child to go to daycare, or do we have any information like that, or any indication of?
Well, yes, because of the information that, in which they asked about if they wanted on-site care or they wanted a different source perhaps for wraparound care.
Okay.
So what my hope would be is that we could decide about, firm up the walk zones and if we're gonna go with the midday as suggested by Rob. And then when the screening comes in May, that we can actually let parents know this is what's being offered and firm up early in, the summer. There's always time for changes, of course, but to know whether or not they're going to need transportation, they want transportation, this is for sure where they're going to go, what they're going to do for their wraparound care, those kinds of things. So if we can come to some conclusion, within the next couple months, then in the screening in May, we can communicate with the parents, which I think will be very helpful for them and their planning as a family.
Right.
Any other questions?
Thank
Great,
you very
thank
much.
you.
I look forward to sitting down with you again once we get a little more information and firming it up a little more.
Yeah, we talked with Kathy and Chris about that getting that information from parents. If we can get that by early August, that'll tell us how we think we can set the routes up, like where are they gonna go, who's actually at that time gonna ride the bus and not ride the bus.
And they might be dropped off somewhere else than where we're getting picked up.
Correct, yep. And that's stuff we do at a lot of locations. We like things that are consistent, so it's not today they go here, tomorrow they go there, because there's too many options or ways to take a student to the wrong place. Now, we're still gonna look for that adult, but it's nice to have that consistency. So if we do have to have a sub-driver on, they're gonna know on the sheet that, this week or, every Monday this student goes to this place, otherwise they go home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything else for transportation now? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're all done?